The Business Journal Roundtable Series is sponsored by iSynergy, creative digital advertising.
You know, this is great for business people. I mean, this is great for investors. But when we talk to folks like the people at Action, for instance, social service agencies, it's not great for people who live in the city of Youngstown or Warren.
One, they're not used to change and getting them to understand that the market has shifted
They
to
don't
a
have the
higher rate.
resources. I mean, they may understand the market shifted, but they don't have that $1,000
Right.
a month.
And that's the sad part, but if you paid attention to how the economy has been going the last few years, you had to start making some shifts and changes to do some extra side hustles or figuring out, or the way you want to live, I want to live by myself. You may have to join with your sister, with your brother, with a cousin to be able to afford a better home, a better quality of life.
And we asked, why is it so expensive now? Maybe the question is, why was it so cheap 5 to 10 years ago?
Right.
That wasn't a great picture either.
Compared
So-
to our neighbors in Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Columbus, where, we have people leaving here, going and renting a place in Columbus, and they're spending $2,300 a month on rent, which is unheard of here for a one-bedroom.
And I think over the last, it was probably 3 years ago, coming out of the pandemic, I think the Mahoning, Youngstown area was in the top 10 across the country in home value increase. Well, I think it was a combination of, number one, that was, whether it was 10 or 15 across the entire country increased, but you got to realize we were 10, 15% behind the entire country. So it was a combination of coming up with the rest of the nation and our area catching up, which was the perfect storm. I think it was as high as 27%, property value, with the top 10 in the country. I think it was a combination of we were so far behind and what has happened, across the country.
I mean, I left in 94. I was born and raised Northside, Youngstown. I left and moved to Columbus to go to Ohio State. 94, I moved into my first apartment in Columbus, and it was like $350 a month. That was like 96. Years go by, I've lived in Cincinnati. I've lived in Cranberry Township outside of Pittsburgh. Right before I moved back here 10 years ago, I had a 2-bedroom, 1.5-bath townhouse that I owned, but I had paid $145,000 for like 1,000 square feet. I knew I was leaving corporate and changing career paths. I moved back home. I got half an acre, 2,100 square feet house for $92,000.
Wow.
Sold my property over there for $156 in 4 days, and that was 10 years ago. I paid rent in Cincinnati of $850 for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath 8 years ago. So that price now is nothing compared to what, and that's our area finally catching up. But if you haven't lived outside of our area, that is shocking for you because you don't understand Columbus's rates, the Cincinnati rates, Pittsburgh, everywhere else but around here, we're finally catching up. But which you have to be able to change somewhat. And the affordability, a 2-bedroom here now, $600, $700, $800 sounds crazy, but to us, but the rest of the nation and the rest of the state, they're paying it.
Yeah.
They've been paying it.
But it's all relative. And I think the one thing is, first of all, kind of what you were saying, Andrea. We're getting people like from Canada and overseas and whatever. There's no attachment to those properties when they buy them. So we're hoping that they will use a good property management company to keep them up and keep them in shape and do whatever. There again, that comes to the local officials, making sure what are these investors doing. Are they just buying these property and running them down and just renting them out? The other thing is, has the wages in this area increased enough to cover what you were saying? It's all relative. If the wages haven't come up to where they need to be, even though the rents maybe need to be higher, but how are they going to afford it when the wages haven't been, increased either? So we want to go 800, but if you're, you got to pay the bills, and if you don't have the income, and I think that's one of the other problems, it's great, and maybe it should be 800, but has the wages followed suit too? And if they haven't followed suit, then how do you do that? And again, somebody maybe from Toronto or somebody like that, yeah, everything is higher there, but it's not here. And I'm hoping that we police the cities. I don't care what city it is. It needs to be policed that these out-of-state landlords, who a lot of them buy bundles. They're bundled and they buy them and are keeping up with what it should be and not just being technically, kind of out of sight, out of mind landlords.
The Business Journal Roundtable Series is sponsored by iSynergy, creative digital advertising.